I got the music in me, knew it simply had to be my destiny. I'm blessed to be the best within my C-N-H-E-N-D. Please believe not Ninja Gaiden. I'm not the guy to fight with them lightning. They come in dumb and I leave them enlightened.
What's up, my wizards? Dev, SBMTG, channel down there. We do magic stuff on YouTube. We've got a cool list for you today. We're going to do the top 10 sleepers, or at least what I think are the top 10 sleepers, in Shadows over Innistrad. What's a sleeper? Some of you may be asking yourself. A sleeper is a couple of different things. Mostly it's a card that is not getting much attention, you know, or people are dumping on it even. And it's a lot better than people are giving it credit for, sort of the main definition. But it could also be a card that has to maybe wait on rotation to be truly powerful, you know. So let's take a look at the cards that I think are those things. Let's start the list here with an honorable mention, like I always do. I actually want to talk about two cards here, but I'm going to make it really quick. First thing is Pale Rider of Trostad, which is one of the things that wins a flavor award for me. I think the guy's really cool, and I just want to know his story, you know. But functionally, at least, he's a 2-mana 3/3 that enables Madness and Reanimation in a Reanimator deck. This could be like a cheap early game guy that can either attack or, you know, play defense really well for you, and allow you to discard a big, you know, creature. So I like the guy for a lot of reasons, and I think even later game, you know, turn 4, he'd be a 3/3 that enables a card with Madness that you can go ahead and cast. So different reasons to like the guy. I'm not sure he'll end up in anything because the Red-Black Madness deck mostly going to have vampires, you know, but I do like the guy's design. The other thing I want to talk about is Skin Invasion, the first card that I'm going to talk about out of like 3 at least, that I know were designed by Gavin Verhey, who's been designing for Wizards for a couple years now, you know, but he always has really interesting stuff, and there's probably more cards of his design on this list, if I had to bet, but he's really knocked it out of the park this set, and this is the first card of his I want to talk about. Skin Invasion looks interesting to me, and it might actually be a true sleeper, you know. Just for the 1 mana, you can either put it on one of your guys and ensure that you'll get something possibly bigger when it dies, or you can put it on one of their creatures that you want to attack. Go ahead and kill it and get your own 3/4. All of this just for 1 mana? I mean, this could actually almost be good maybe in that red-blue prowess sort of aggro deck with Storm Chaser Mage, you know, sort of as insurance, or it could be good in a mid-range sort of deck that likes to kill guys, because you can very early on get your own 3/4 for killing their 2-drop. So Skin Invasion actually looks like it might be good. But to really start the list for realsies here, number 10, we're going to give to Essence Flux. A lot of uncommons on the list, to be honest with you, and Essence Flux is going to start that off. Really like this out of the board in the Blue-White Spirits deck, and it could really be main deck, you know. Got some Spirit Gravy, which would be a great band name. I actually looked up Spirit Gravy to see if that was already a band name. It is not. You may have Spirit Gravy. But Spirit Gravy is cool on this card. But not only that, even if you don't run Spirits, it's really good with like Reflector Mage and really anything with Enter the Battlefield triggers. And not only that, it can save your dudes from removal. You know, they try to ruin his Path your guy, whatever they've got, and you can just flicker it, and it's not being removed anymore. So, and all this for 1 mana. So, pretty good investment too. So, like a lot about Essence Flux, and it could really be an under-the-radar either sideboard piece or actual important main deck piece for decks that want to run a lot of Enter the Battlefield effects. And like the Eerie Interlude deck, people want that card to be a thing, you know. So, this card could go pretty well in a deck like that too. So, like the thing, and we'll see what it does. My number 9 is a fun card. This is Triskaidekaphobia, which everyone sees and like, oh, the flavor's so cool, I love this card, but it's terrible. I don't know. I'm actually not totally sure. If you can get them to the 13 and kill them that way, obviously, that's great. I mean, I think this is the best alternate win condition we've seen in a while. I like this more than Hedron Alignment, although Hedron Alignment is also really interesting. But I like this more than Biovisionary. I like this more than Dragon's Maze, you know. I just feel like it's a much more fulfillable condition than really any of those cards. Much more so than Hedron Alignment, I think we can agree. So, I mean, people are going to hit 13 life at some point over the course of the game, you know. I mean, they may go from, you know, 14 to 11 through an attack or something. But there are definitely ways that we can deal, you know, 1 damage at a time to them with other cards and get them to 13 and just win. I mean, as far as alt win conditions go, love it. But after they pass 13 life, this is still an enchantment that does a point of damage every turn, which is like, that's probably okay. My number 8 is Brain in a Jar. And I know 2 joke cards in a row, I get it, but this could possibly be no joke at all, you know. This is no Aether Vial, you know, whatever. The whole decks have to be built sort of around Aether Vial, you know. And I get that some aggro decks are just, here's an aggro deck, also Aether Vial. But this you could do pretty much that same thing with in control decks, or decks that like to play a lot of instants and sorceries and stuff. I just think that lowering the cost of your spells is always good. You can play this early in the game and just start putting the counters on it, you know. And I really like the scry ability on it. People say it costs too much. But in a control deck, you know, you're going to get to like turn 15 in a lot of control decks. So something like this is actually a little better than it looks. It's cool that you can cast counter spells for one. You can cast like Dragon Lord's Prerogative for 1 mana. And later, much later on in the game, yes. But you can, you know, cast Anticipate, things like that. 3 and 4 mana spells for just 1. And yeah, I know the limitations. You know, you have to have as many charge counters on it as the converted mana cost of the card you're casting. It gets complicated. And you can remove counters, but it costs a lot, and things like that. But, you know, Control wants to scry. Control wants to be able to play more spells. So I think the card may have a place somewhere as like a one-of in the Control deck. But again, we'll have to see. I just think very powerful effect. My number 7 is Startled Awake. If you hit this a couple of times, I think you may have won the game in a dedicated mill strategy, you know. Not only, you know, their first turn, that's 7 cards off the rip. If they go second, that's 8 cards. They'll be drawing cards the entire game. You'll probably hit them with a couple of other mill effects, you know. So just hitting this twice is probably a win, especially if you've done some stuff with Sphinx's tutelage up to then. A lot of people like this in the tutelage deck. I'm not totally sure, but I do want to point out that it's recursible, you know. There are a lot of things that exile creatures around right now, which could be an issue for a card like this, but traditionally, something like this that just keeps coming back over and over is a very good card. And the fact that this basically hits them for a large portion of their life total, in quotation marks, you know, milling is like trying to do 60 damage to them. That's how we look at that. This does 13 out of 60. So, you know, this does a pretty fair percentage of their life total to them, their quote-unquote life total. So I really like the idea behind this card, the design, the flavor is obviously good, the art obviously. People are praising the card for everything but its functionality, but I don't want to discount its functionality. I actually think this might be an interesting 1 or maybe 2, but probably 1 of piece in some control decks, and in dedicated mill strategies, you'll play 4 of these. My number 6 is Second Harvest. Something that some people have talked about, but there really obviously hasn't been that much speculation on, because it's only like 45 cents on TCG Player right now. Second Harvest obviously looks like a good commander card, so there's that. But in Standard, there's a lot of stuff that creates tokens. You know, we got Gideon, Retreat to Emiria, Secure the Waste, things that create wolf tokens, things that create spirit tokens, human soldiers and stuff like that. You know, it just got so many tokens in Standard right now that I think this could actually be pretty interesting. We got the Westvale Abbey deck, you know, we got devil tokens, we still got dragons fodder in the format, so just a ton of tokens right now. And something like this could be good, especially after Virulent Plague rotates in just a few months here. So look out. I mean, I really think Second Harvest, it probably looks like a win more to a lot of people. Like, you don't need this for your in-game strategy, but I definitely think, especially when combined with some other stuff, that this looks pretty good. My number 5 is probably a surprise. My number 5 is Gris Boon, and yeah, it's way up here above all those other cards. This is a card I've seen nobody talk about, and I don't understand because this card looks really, really good to me. For instance, just 1 mana investment, flying, and the buff is already pretty good. But this is Rancor-esque in that you can bring it back from the graveyard. So if the creature that it's on dies, you haven't necessarily been 2 for 1. Flying is very powerful, not to mention, again, the little buff is worth just a 1 mana. 1 mana for this. I just really, really like this thing. I think it's better than it looks. It's good in enchantments that are strategies that want to stress enchantments, which with, you know, Starfield and Blessed Spirits, we have things like that in the format. Graceblade Artisan, you know, put this on a Graceblade Artisan, the Artisan's pretty nice. So, you know, I do think this card has multiple applications, and it costs very, very little to cast. Maybe smaller aggro strategies will want something like this. I just love that it comes back. You know, it's just card has an awful lot going from it for how it's priced, to the effects it gives you, to the fact that it comes back. So Gris Boon, I think, is something that's way underneath the radar, and I haven't heard anybody mention like at all. And I actually think it looks really, really good to me. So let me know how you feel, because I want to know if I'm crazy or not. The number 4 is From Under the Floorboards, possibly one of the coolest names in the entire set. Just people are calling this a black Sphinx's Revelation, which I'm not totally sure about, never have been, but the fact that it gives you creatures instead of drawing you cards, but it still gains you some life, you know, people are calling it that. You know, Control Finisher, I'm not sure. That's the number 1 thing people say about it, Control Finisher. We already have some good control finishers in the format. Although I do like this when, late in the game, you got a Baby Jace out, the creature version, and you can discard this off of his tap ability and just get a bunch of zombies. And a lot of life, too. Especially control wants something like that. It's very, very resilient. Late game card. It seems like a decent end game option, but I'm just not sure if it's that easy to make the card big. And I don't want to, hard cast it, although there's probably situations where hard casting it isn't too bad, getting a few zombies, getting some life, whatever. So maybe is the answer, but we've got a lot of options for 5 mana in the format. We've got, probably better madness stuff than this. I like, Welcome into the Fold. A little more than this as far as madness options for control decks, but I do like at the end of their turn or even during their combat step, it's important to note that. You just get a bunch of zombies and gain some life, so maybe. Number 3 is Cryptolith Rite. This, on Reddit, Gavin Verhey, yeah, there's that name again. He said this is his favorite card that he's designed from this set. A lot of people kind of going crazy, so I don't know if we can call it a sleeper, but most spikes and people in the competitive community, writers, have said that this card is probably not as good. We need to cool our jets, all that. I'm sort of ambivalent. I'm really on the fence about the card. It can obviously be an incredible bomb depending on what the format is, Obviously, Commander, good card. Let's get this out of the way. People like this in Commander. It's obviously an interesting card there, and it will be built around. But in Standard, we'll have to see. I do like the idea of, turn 1 guy, turn 2 this, turn 3 2 guys, and then turn 4 you can start going. You can even play 3 guys on turn 3 fairly easily, one mana cost guys and a 2 mana cost guy. This makes Sylvan Advocate a mana dude until he becomes big. This makes Elvish Visionary even more playable. It makes any 1-drop playable. Honored Hierarch, he can actually be the card it wants to be if this is out. So, things like Blister Pod works with that kind of well because it works with Eldrazi Scion tokens. You can tap them and then sack them for an extra mana, so you can get really big really fast. So I like a lot of things about the card. I just don't know exactly what we do with it, and I don't know if we want to spend turn 2 doing this or not. I do like that it's any mana, which means that we can make a base green deck and then sort of expand from there with colors. So, like a lot about the card, we'll just have to see if it is truly reliable. My number 2 is Goldknight Castigator. Something else that I'm not sure is necessarily a sleeper, because this is the inverse of the last card. A lot of players are saying, like, boo, this card is bad. And a lot of writers and competitive players are saying, yay, this card is good. I'm with them all the way on this. This card looks really good to me. It may be the best, aggro 4-drop in the entire format, you guys. 4 mana, 4 power, evasion, haste. That's crazy, and it's usually a card that's going to come with a downside. So if mono red or maybe red X aggro is a thing in this format, I definitely see this card, making some waves. This thing looks really good to me. It's sort of Hellrider-ish. This Hellrider would often come down on turn 4 with haste and deal 4 damage at the very, very least. Sometimes it would deal 6, 7, But this looks Hellrider-ish to me in a lot of ways. If we can get 2 swings in with it, we've done 8 damage, It's resistant to Languish, resistant to Silk Wrap, This Ultimate Price can hit it, maybe, but that's it, So really, really am a fan of this thing right here, and I damn the naysayers. In dedicated aggro, this I really think is the best 4-drop we could possibly play. So look for this card to definitely be a thing. In my number 1, and I'll go ahead and explain this, by the way, like Castigator is probably a more important card, but I'd say more people are speculating on this. I think this card is much more under the radar. My number 1 is Elusive Tormentor. Seriously. And this may have to wait on a rotation as well, the same way that Aetherling had to wait on a rotation. This card is Aetherling-ish to me in some ways. It's just incredibly hard to kill. And very easy to get through for damage. And that's why it kind of reminds me of Aetherling, Discarding a card is kind of a problem, but again, we're in a format with Madness, so we could care less. We're in a format with Delirium. This could go very well in maybe a Reanimator strategy. I'm not totally sure about that one, but definitely Madness and Delirium. And this gets through for 4 super easy, That's 1/5 of their life total right there, so in control, that seems kind of good. Now, obviously, Kalitas is a better 4-drop, I think, for black decks than this. So it may have to wait all the way until Kalitas rotates out, but maybe not. Maybe not. In Control, this is a pretty good-looking card to me, as it's very hard to kill. One of the only things that kills it is like Languish. Aside from that, it's just not gonna happen with pretty much any removal in the entire format. So, love Elusive Tormentor, and I actually think this could be a much better card than people are giving it credit for. That's all I got for now. Let me know if I left anything off, or if you think any of my analysis is just dead wrong, or if you agree, if you're like, yeah, that card's awesome. Let me know. I'm always interested to see what you guys have to say. I totally read all the comments. Hey, Julie's here. You never get to see Julie. You never see Julie on camera. Hey, baby. But in any case, if you enjoyed the content, what I'd like you to do is, like, share, comment, subscribe, and check out any of our other awesome videos we've done lately. Any of these, they're all pretty good. And I'll see you guys later. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizard. Say bye, Julie, you're not, because you're just so comfy. You're a comfy baby.